welcome back to Bourbon Barrel Talk. I'm your host, Scott Minton. Today we are sitting down at West Fork Whiskey Company in Indianapolis, Indiana. We are sitting down with one of the proprietors, Mr. David McIntyre. How you doing today, David?
Can't complain. Drinking whiskey in the middle of the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. Also with us, we got OFO fanboy Josh in the house.
What's up? And you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
That's right. And then Mr. Tanner Justice. He kind of introduced us to David, and so he said, I want to join. So I was like, Tanner, come on. So Tanner, how you doing?
Good. I'm just here for the free drinks and to ask the dumb questions that no one's going to think of. So
there you go. That's what I like to hear.
I think of really dumb stuff all the time, Tanner. It's okay.
You just don't ask them, or
No, I do.
Sometimes he asks them, but I don't edit them out. So David, for our listeners that are out there who have maybe never heard of West Fork Whiskey, give us your elevator speech, your sales pitch, the overview of what you are, where you came from, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so West Fork Whiskey, we're a company who's hell-bent on creating great Indiana whiskey. We saw back in 2014 that, clearly there's a lot of amazing bourbon and whiskey made in Kentucky and Tennessee, and we said, hey, Indiana has the same grain, very similar water source. Why is no one in Indiana making a great bourbon? So that was kind of what got the process started, and from there, we've been producing bourbon now for over 5 years, and we've grown quite a bit throughout that process.
So can you tell us a little bit about the name? Because when I hear fork, I think, dinner fork, or is West Fork, is that the West Fork, the fork on your left there or right there you're taking at dinner time, or is it about a river or a creek or something Indiana specific?
Correct, river. It's not to do with dinner by any means. So we always wanted to be Indiana-centric, show our pride in the state. But we also knew that when we cross state lines, people might not want to see an Indiana bourbon. They're so used to seeing Kentucky that, seeing Indiana big and bold on the bottle might not be a good thing. So we didn't want to come out and say, hey, we're Hoosier bourbon or Indiana bourbon. So we named it West Fork, which is the part of the White River that flows through Indianapolis, where we're sitting today.
So wait a second. Bourbon doesn't have to come from the state of Kentucky?
Yeah, no, it does not. We still get that question probably daily here in the tasting room.
And just for clarification, everybody, bourbon is a United States of American-made whiskey. Doesn't have to be Kentucky.
Yeah, there's a few other laws that go with that, but
there are.
You're 100% correct. It does not have to be made in the state of Kentucky.
That's just the one that everybody seems to get confused on a regular basis.
Or butthurt about.
Whatever.
Yeah, we see a lot of it.
So Indiana appears to be really, what I would say is establishing themselves as a bourbon industry. You've got you guys, you've got Old 55, you've got Starlight, Spirits of French Lick that's out there. Can you tell us a little bit more, about expand on the history and the rapid growth of, Indiana bourbon and where that's coming from, and why did you choose to do it in Indiana versus, someplace else?
Yeah, to speak about just the state in general, the laws didn't allow distilleries to really exist for the most part in Indiana until about 2013. Those opened up a little bit more then, so you saw a lot more people coming in at that point. Other than, Huber's been around for quite a long time. They've, had a different kind of permit. I believe it's a farm permit. And obviously MGP in Lawrenceburg has been around for a very long time. But other than that, all the players really came in, after 2012, 2013. So it's still in its infancy. But again, we have all of the raw inputs. We have everything necessary to make a quality bourbon here. We just had to have people getting in. So again, you mentioned a few of them. You have Starlight, Old 55, multiple here in Indianapolis, 1205, 8th Day, Hotel Tango, Cardinal down in Bloomington, Spirits of French Lick. A lot of players now, and a lot of people putting back whiskey for longer and longer. So, it's growing quite a bit, and it's been a great start to the distilling boom in Indiana, per se. And for West Fork, why we wanted to be in Indiana is that, we're all from Indiana. We all grew up in southern Indiana and Bedford, and we all have a lot of pride in our state. A lot of people don't like living in Indiana, or they want to leave, and
blah on them.
A lot of us have left the state for periods of our life, but we made our way back here because there's really no place in the world like it.
Right. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I'm being born and bred in Indiana, southern Indiana. I love being from southern Indiana and from Indiana, because there's just a lot of pride that comes with that. And I always say there's nothing like Hoosier hospitality, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
great people. The people you meet are so genuine, and they make doing business and supporting them and those local individuals and companies so much easier because of the type of people they are. So
Absolutely.
David, do you guys, I mean, maybe it's more specific to the locale you're in, but Indianapolis, do you guys have like a distillers group where the distillers all get together, talk about what's going on? Is that a thing in Indiana?
We've tried a couple different times, and it hasn't been overly successful. The breweries in Indiana have a great guild, and they've worked together for decades, and it's been a great thing. The distilleries, we haven't been able to really have one go successfully yet. There are a lot of different factors there. I think the infancy of the distilling industry in Indiana plays a part there, because generally everybody's fairly new to distilling and to the industry, and they might be a little bit afraid to collaborate and work together as much as people do on the beer side. I would love for it to be in place. I would love to work more with other distilleries throughout the state. We have a lot of great friendships with a lot of those distilleries, but unfortunately no guild has been successful to date.
I'd really like to see a punch card where if I hit 5 distilleries in one day, and I'm still walking, I get a prize or a T-shirt or something.
I think there is actually. Indiana Grown, I believe, has a program that we're part of, and I think Indiana on Tap also. They do a lot on the beer side, but I think they might have something along those lines as well.
So yeah, to kind of piggyback what Josh said, it would be kind of neat. Like, there's the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, right? Like, you can go and get your little book stamped and things like that. Is something like that in the future? Or are you pressing your other, brothers and sisters in the distilling business to say, hey, we need to do something to kind of, boost up that industry and that tourism, I guess would be the best way to put it, to say, hey, spend the weekend in Indianapolis and you can come to West Fork and you could drive over to Old 55, and then you said another one here locally that I hadn't heard of. So,
1205, was that one?
Yeah. So
yeah, there are multiple here in downtown Indianapolis.
So, to me, that would be a cool thing to do, right? To work with those other distilleries to say, hey, and then at the end of it, you all send them a little chip or whatever, if they've completed them all. So
Now, I don't know about carrying a token or a chip in my pocket. Something seems a little off about that, but a punch card,
yeah, whatever. You always make things difficult.
We would absolutely love to have something like that in place, and again, I think a few different organizations have tried, especially the Indy Tourism Office has some things in place, and again, some of the other private organizations like Indiana on Tap and Indiana Grown have made efforts, but certainly on the actual distilling side, we could be pushing harder. I think everybody's just caught up in their own growth right now, trying to stay on pace.
It's just the bourbon geek in us. We always want to go and check out the newest, next hottest thing, and those are the cool ways to do it. What about your guys' expressions, your all's brands, your bottles, what you're selling? Can you tell us a little bit more specific about what you are doing here with West Fork Whiskey?
Yeah, so, like I said, we sought out to make great, affordable Indiana whiskey. So to do that, we generally have fairly high corn mash bills. Again, as I've mentioned, not on this podcast, but during our tour, a lot of Kentucky's bourbons are made using some Indiana corn. So we know we have some high quality corn here. So we wanted to always, put that at the forefront of our products. Even our rye whiskeys are very heavy on the corn side. So that's one thing that differentiates us from a general Kentucky bourbon or rye. And again, we wanted to have a more modern feel, a more trendy feel with our grain to glass products. Generally you're the vibe from bourbons and rye whiskeys in general is almost Prohibition era, some Western influences, whereas ours was generally more stylized after not a bourbon at all. More stylized, almost like a trendy vodka brand, I want to say, but not totally. But again, we wanted to play to that younger audience, that the up and coming bourbon drinkers. It's very difficult to get somebody who's been drinking Jim Beam for the last 55 years to go out and try a craft whiskey. But, people that are just coming into the spirits market that are, they're out of their days of drinking, Natty Light in college, and they're starting to, try wine, try different spirits. Those are the people that we were generally going after in the beginning. So that's kind of our brand feel is looking for that new generation of bourbon drinkers.
So your price point is actually really good for most craft distillers. I mean, they're much higher on the price point, things to that nature. Can you tell us a little bit more about, the Blues and then the Colonel and then the Writer's Block and Writers is Rye, R-Y-E for people so that way you don't think I'm crazy, but they've got some cool crazy names. Could tell us a little bit more about the mash bill and then also, how did that come about?
Yeah. So to start just on the price point, as you mentioned, we came into this and we saw the craft industry, what was going on. We saw that there was a lot of product out there that was $60, $70, $90 for a bottle of whiskey, sometimes $50 or $60 for a $3.75, and those products a lot of the time weren't competitive against a standard $25 bottle of bourbon from Kentucky. So we didn't want to go down that rabbit hole of overcharging and underperforming. So we always wanted to have a very affordable product. In regards to our bourbons and ryes, we do offer 2 bourbons. We wanted to have kind of 2 different avenues approach because in general there are a lot of wheated bourbons out there and then there's a lot of high rye bourbons out there. We wanted to offer both. So we brought the Colonel on first. It was our first ever bourbon. It's a wheated mash bill. It's about 25% wheat, 5% malted barley. And then B Street came on board about 9 months after that. It's a high rye bourbon, so it's about 30% rye and the remainder being corn, just a 2 grain. And our rye whiskey, similar to all of our products, it has a good amount of corn. It's about 40% corn, 60% rye. And the names they all tell stories. Again, going to trying to be a more trendy, modern brand. The Colonel's named after my late father, who was a colonel in the Army. B Street Blues is named after the street we're on currently because when we were building this facility, we were supposed to open in March, and it was about a 10-month delay in that. So we were singing the blues for a while, trying to get this thing going. And then Writer's Block is kind of a nod to how terrible it is to name products. We had a severe block when naming that product, so that's how that one came to life. Again, it's a more fun, playful brand experience than what you traditionally see in the bourbon marketplace.
So on the tour, you kind of talked a little bit about farm to table, like farm to glass, that type of thing. Do you have a good partnership with local farmers to pick your grain from, things like that, or how does that work, and what does that look like?
We've been very fortunate to work with the same farmer, same company, Sugar Creek Malt, since our inception. So all of our grain is from Indiana, including our wheat and rye, which is difficult at times because we're not a huge producer of rye, but it all comes from Lebanon, Indiana, and they've been great partners. They've been able to grow with us. They kind of started out at a similar time in this craft landscape. They're almost a craft grain provider. There are the major players out there that are Indiana grains as well, but it's been good to work with a smaller local partner to always get our grain handled for us.
So tell me, what's your daily kind of production, or maybe it's a monthly production in terms of 53-gallon barrels you're producing?
Yeah, so we're distilling generally 4 or 5 times a week, and with each run, we're filling between 1 and 2 barrels each week. Again, things change with holidays and vacations and things like that, but that's the general makeup is filling 1 to 2 barrels a day.
Somewhere between 20 to 25 a month.
Yeah.
So, me being the single barrel snob that I am, single barrel products are definitely on the up and rise. Everybody wants to get something that's off flavor profile. They want to get away from batch brew or batch distillate, things to that nature. Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing on the Old-Hamer side with your single barrel program, things to that nature, and kind of let us know if there's anything unique that's coming up about it?
Yeah, I mean the single barrels, especially on the Old-Hamer side, just because on the West Fork side there's not really any availability for us to sell single barrels, but on the Old-Hamer side it's been absolutely huge. We do single barrels of all Old-Hamer products, no matter the proof, and we do pretty extreme customization on those. You've seen a lot of, especially local partners, major grocery store chains like Myers and Kroger's of the world, completely customize their labels, which is something that's pretty unheard of and not offered from 99% of distilleries that are doing single barrels. So it's been incredibly successful, and people love them because it becomes a collection of single barrels. Myers done 7 in the last 12 months, I believe, and you can line up all of those, and each one has its own specific label, its specific feel, and they become collectibles at that point, which is very fun.
So you may have given us a sneak peek on a couple of labels. I'm kind of excited to see how those fall.
Yeah, we have some exciting things coming up over the next 6 months, and specialty releases as well. We just launched the port finished Hugh Hamer, which is selling out as we speak. I don't imagine it'll be on the market very long. We have a lot of other finishing products coming up and specialty releases. So there's a lot of exciting things going on.
You've referenced Meijer a couple of times as the grocery store that throughout the day where you guys are pushing a lot of bottles and barrels out through Meijer. I guess we haven't quite seen that down in the Louisville market. Maybe we have in southern Indiana, and I haven't noticed it because I go to Kroger. But
Meijer's not as big of a distribution point, I guess, for bourbon and whiskey in general. We have a small section in our Meijer's, but evidently your alls are much larger.
But our Kroger's
on the other hand, are big.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been. I mean, both are huge players in the space in Indiana. I mean, I haven't been to one down in southern Indiana, but they take a lot of pride in their barrel picks. They have a great team that comes and picks, and they put a lot of support behind it. And at least in central Indiana, they're very, very prominent in the major bourbon groups and the major searchers of fine whiskey. Definitely hit up Meijer quite a bit.
I think you had said you guys have some people that line up at Meijer's when some of the single barrels will get released.
Yep,
people
absolutely.
are out waiting, and they basically sell out the day of the release.
Correct. Yeah, especially at the north side Indianapolis Meijer, things like that. You'll have a few days lag, and then the ones at the kind of outer markets in the Indianapolis metropolitan area, there'll be a few straggler bottles that'll show up 5 or 6 days later, but they fly through it. They're a great partner. We love working with them.
So how many single barrels do you think you all are releasing a year, and then of those, how many are actually leaving the state of Indiana? Because it sounds like the majority is staying in state, but I know you said, during the tour you all were distributing to Tennessee, Illinois, and maybe Ohio outside of Indiana. I can't remember.
So we're Indiana, Illinois, Tennessee, Missouri, Connecticut, New Jersey, and just brought on, I believe, Vermont and D.C. So yeah, we're the single barrels out of state. It's far less than what we do in the state of Indiana, but they're starting to get a lot of traction because of the customization we offer. But we're doing at least 4 or 5 single barrels a month at this point in Indiana, and we also have, under the Old Hammer brand, the single barrel 100 proof product, which is always in a single barrel format as well, if you count that.
So
Right.
How does that work for you guys? Do you all send out sample bottles to the liquor store or group, or do they have to come here and go to your warehouse?
For out of state, it's always shipping samples, just because it's, especially during COVID times, you're not going to get people coming down here from out of state for the most part. But for most people in Indiana, they're coming to our facility and hand picking barrels.
So out of state, like if like we have listeners all over the country, things like that, do you all offer shipping, or can you ship, or do you have a drop shipper, things like that, if people wanted to pick up your product?
So we do sell online in 31 states currently. We have to use a third party to do so, just because the state of Indiana doesn't allow us to direct ship. So that goes through a distributor to a third party who then supplies the logistics arm of that. So it is available in 31 states currently, and those states can be found on our website.
So one of the other couple of unique products that you all offer are your, I guess, craft cocktails in a can. Could you tell us a little bit more about those, and how did that come about, and why did you choose the 2 different ones that you did?
Yeah, so the ready to drink market, as it's called, has exploded over the last really 2 to 3 years. canned cocktails are, growing at a similar rate as, the seltzers and, White Claws of the world. They're growing hand over fist.
I hear White Claw is the law.
Yeah, no laws on claws, right? So we saw that trending in that direction, and we also saw that there was something missing, which was there weren't many players who were using straight bourbon in those products. There were a lot of GNS vodka-based cocktails with a few variables there, but overall very, very much vodka-based. And to be able to bring one to market and $12.99 a 4-pack for a straight bourbon whiskey canned cocktail is extremely competitive. In regards to the two products we have currently, one is a traditional whiskey drinker's highball. It's bourbon, sparkling water, splash of lemon. It's definitely more catered towards a traditional bourbon drinker. And then you have the snapback, which is more, it's the mule. It's got some of that sugar content. It's the more popular of the two because it's got way more flavor punch than just that traditional bourbon cocktail.
I love a good ginger beer mixed with some bourbon, especially on like a nice hot summer day. It gives you a little bit more of that refreshing pop to it. So
yeah, and they're 7% currently, but we like to maybe pour it on a glass of ice and add a little bit more bourbon, bump that up a little bit. It works out well.
Yeah,
always more bourbon.
What about these? These look like West Fork ones. I was checking them out. The green ones. I can't read the name of it. Is it
Cold Hamer?
No.
The mint conditions. So yeah, we have another canned cocktail it does use a corn whiskey base, and it's essentially a smash. It's mint lemon whiskey. It's also a super refreshing summer drink.
So corn whiskey. Can you tell us a little bit about your corn whiskey?
Yeah, so the corn whiskey is it was our first product we ever made. It was really how we sharpened our teeth. Being in Indiana, we wanted to make always, like I've said, very corn-forward mash bills. And so we really started out making 100% corn whiskey. What differentiates that from bourbon is just a few simple rules. It has to be at least 81% corn versus 51% for a bourbon. And it can't be aged in a new charred oak barrel, whereas bourbon has to be. So we actually use our used bourbon barrels to age that product. So it's extremely versatile in its raw form. It's really most similar to a tequila, to be honest. And we've actually found that a lot of tequila producers do add corn whiskey in theirs to increase their yields, and they're allowed to do so, which is extremely interesting. And in the aged form, it's super sweet. It's butterscotch. It's a sweet bomb for sure.
So what's your favorite, bourbon of choice that you all have to make a craft cocktail, and what craft cocktail would that be? Old fashioned or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because when I drink bourbon. I don't usually add sugar or anything else to it, but our most popular cocktail by far, as it is with pretty much any bar in the world, is our old fashioned. We use our B Street Blues. It's our high rye bourbon, which is going to add a little bit more spice to it. We use a proprietary blend of bitters here in our tasting room, and then we're unique on the sugar aspect because we use a Demerara syrup, which is a much more it's a darker, not necessarily a brown sugar, but it's got a lot more flavor, a lot more depth, and we don't overly fruit ours. There's no maraschino cherries piled on the bottom, or a full orange slice or anything like that. It's simple, it's clean, it lets the bourbon do most of the talking.
So Tanner, as a guy who drinks West Fork whiskey regularly,
yep,
what is your go-to and how do you drink it?
Well, until today, I have a different answer.
All right.
Typically, I was a Colonel fan and still am, but after we did those tastings, I think I like the B Street better, and I would just drink it straight like we did today. But the last one we had, I think, was the port finish. I know that's Old Hamer, but those two stood out to me. So, yeah, I would drink those probably straight. I mean,
so I was shocked when we tried the Righteous, and I felt kind of silly saying this is what I was getting out of it, but a microwave popcorn, buttered popcorn kind of nose to it, and that nose just had a really long finish. But it was a really good rye whiskey. It was a 90 proof rye. Is that
90 proof? Yeah.
Yeah, the Writer's Block. Yeah.
Sorry, I said Righteous. Writer's Block.
that might be the next one though.
That's right. I think somebody else uses Righteous somewhere. I don't remember where that's from, but the rye was really good.
So everybody's got a favorite kid, right?
I only have one, so I do.
Yep.
What's yours, David?
I got to go with the Colonel. You know, again, it's near and dear to my heart. It was our first bourbon. It's named after my father, and I like wheaters. I like sweeter, softer bourbons for sure. So it's definitely my go-to.
So tell us what's up for next for the brands. I mean, any cool collaborations coming? You know, I know that we talked a little bit about some of that, but I mean, I go back to, and we kind of, you know, talked a little bit about this, you know, OKI and, you know, finishing in beer and different things like that. So anything cool like that coming up for you guys, and what's that look like?
We have a lot of finishing products coming up on the Old Hammer side. So those will hit distribution, you know, once every few months, likely over the next year. And then on the grain to glass West Fork side, we have a ton of very, very unique mash bills put back right now. You know, we have some chocolate malted rye. You know, we have some crystallized corns, just very, very unique things that we have aging right now, and those will be coming out over the next likely 6 to 7 months as well. Occasionally, we definitely try to have a lot of specialty single barrel releases in the fall and winter. Just getting people excited for the holiday season. So that's when I anticipate a lot of those coming out.
So tell us a little bit more about the expansion. I know you said you had a big expansion coming up, and then, you know, how's that expansion and production and everything going to be affected by, you know, how tourism going, you know, COVID obviously, you know, being a pain in most people's asses at this point, but, you know, what's that look like, and, you know, how's that going to, you know, fit into the West Fork whiskey future?
You been drinking this morning?
I did drink a little bit, but not just whiskey. Whiskey is a hard word for me, and I don't know why.
Wiki,
whack cornflakes, cracker jacks.
Whoa! All right, back.
Take it easy. Yeah, so we've been working on our expansion project now for over a year and a half. You know, we're building a 35,000 square foot facility in Westfield, Indiana, right across from Grand Park Sports Complex. So we're extremely excited. We're just a couple months now from breaking ground, as long as things go to plan, and it's going to completely transform our company. You know, again, we're a smaller craft producer now. You know, making a couple barrels a day, but that'll put us into the realm of being one of the larger craft whiskey producers in the nation. We'll be able to spit out on our new system upwards of 20 to 30 barrels a day comparatively, and run it 20 hours a day. So it's going to be a much, much larger facility, allow us to put back much more whiskey for longer periods of time. You know, as we've talked about throughout the day, you know, we just haven't had the ability to sit on whiskey as long as we'd like to, because we got to keep supplying the demand. But once we start putting back more and more and more, we'll start to get over time up to those, you know, Kentucky numbers of, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9 year bourbons, and then hopefully over time even further. But we know that's the goal of the company, is to compete on a national and international level with major players, and having the facility to do that is a game changer for us. And then from the retail and tourism perspective, fingers crossed, and, you know, when this facility opens up, we'll be long removed from the days of COVID. You know, again, haven't broke ground yet, so it'll probably be an early 2022 opening. So again, fingers crossed that things are good there. But, you know, this will have a full service restaurant, multiple cocktail bars, an event center that can host 300 person events, and it's on 12.5 acres with a lot of outdoor amenities as well. So and as I mentioned, right across the street from Grand Park. So we're expecting to see quite a few people there, to say the least.
Gotcha. So if our listeners want to reach out to you, they want to find out more about West Fork whiskey and all that good stuff, how do they do that?
Definitely social media is the place to be. You know, we have a very strong presence there, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. Those are the major platforms that we use, and it's just at West Fork Whiskey, westforkwhiskey.com. You know, you can read about us, look at all of our products. That's where you can find, you know, the ability to shop and order online as well. And and if you're ever in Indianapolis, just come stop by the tasting room and get the full experience.
Absolutely. Any other parting thoughts for, you know, our listeners out there?
Just keep drinking.
Keep drinking.
I'll give you a parting thought, because, you know, living in southern Indiana, right across from Louisville, and what everybody in Kentucky seems to consider the bourbon mecca or bourbon capital of the world, as it is. Kentucky bourbon is good, but you got to get out and try the other stuff. The stuff that's in Indiana is totally worth consuming, checking it out, finding something that's good for you. You know, as we've talked through over the past years, Starlight, Spirits of French Lick, Old 55, now West Fork Whiskey, trying all these different brands and different expressions. They all have something very unique and very enjoyable. I picked up a bottle of Old Hamer, not knowing we were coming here a couple weeks ago. Loved it. Single barrel out of Noblesville, Town Spirits and Fine Wine single barrel that I loved. Really enjoyed it. 99% corn. Unique. Just my recommendation is don't let a name or something unknown keep you from trying it, because I didn't try a bad thing today. I really enjoyed everything we tried, and they're not paying me to say that. I just really enjoyed them all.
No, I 100% agree with you. Some very, very unique expressions. You know, the one that we tried, I guess it was 51% rye, I think is what you said. It was just something a little bit different. And then the Writer's Block too, just an amazing different nose. I mean, like the caramel popcorn and things like that. So definitely some great products. I think people should come up here, visit. You can ask for, David. I think you said your partner's name is Blake, and
Yep.
anybody else they should ask for directly or things like that.
Generally, when we're open, Blake or I are not here because we let our bar team take over. They're the mixologists. They're the customer service gurus. So you might see us around, but Jacob and Todd are our main guys behind the bar, and they do a fantastic job here. And just I'm kind of on that note of trying new things. It also supports a lot of small businesses out there. It's been a rough 12 months for the entire food and beverage scene, whether it's breweries, distilleries, or just bars and restaurants. So, I know it's not always easy to get out, but, we love seeing people. We love people coming in and experiencing our brand firsthand, and as do all the other distilleries and breweries out there. So, keep trying new things, keep supporting your local businesses, and when you're in a new market, go check out some of their local businesses.
Tanner, anything else from you?
No, I would just echo, being the only local guy, I think we kind of undersold this tap room, this location. This place is awesome. We're just over a mile or so north of downtown. I think they call this the Monon 16 kind of area. It's right by the Monon Trail. If you're riding your bike down the Monon, stop in. If you find yourself in Indianapolis, stop in. It's one of our favorite spots. Again, I'm not being paid to say this, unless you count the free bourbon. Those are my thoughts.
Good deal. So, hey, if you want to find us at Bourbon Barrel Talk, you can find us at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those good things. You can check us out on our website, bourbonbarreltalk at gmail.com is an easy way to get in touch with us. This is Scott, Tanner, David, and Josh signing off. Thanks.